Let's increase the mass so we see that a bit more. And you can then see it settle to a stop there. Let's go through that section again. You can see it settle to a stop. Now this amount of bounces is way more than what we probably want. We can also just adjust this down maybe to 500. We also set a drag on this and increase the amount of drag so that it settles sooner. And you can see what kind of effect that has. Is it won't bounce as many times. It may only bounce sort of once and settle, and we don't want a whole lot of that in the stomach. We don't want it to just keep jiggling up and down. We want it to settle relatively quickly. In Spring Controller you can also add other influence. Those other influences can be other objects around it that are moving. What's nice about this is right now the only thing that's driving the position of this is because it's linked back to the rotation of this point helper here, and it's using the position change it's going over and making it bounce up and down. We may want other things to actually drive this, and that might be the position of something else in the system that's going to push it up and down and make it work if some other part of the body moves without the spinal column bending. Because right now if I lifted a leg, it wouldn't actually do anything because this joint here wouldn't be rotating, therefore it wouldn't drive this. Yet we'd actually expect it to maybe bounce a bit as I lifted the leg up. So what we can do is we can say add springs, and add other springs to it. This now means that other things in the body are going to actually affect it. Now, as you can see, we've got probably way too much spring going on, because that object's bouncing all over the place. But at least now when you raise one of the feet and move it, it'll be moving that point helper around. You can see it gets very slow, by the way. Something to note about the spring controller, it is time dependent, and it will slow things down incredibly when trying to animate. So I'll show you how to turn it off for animation. It has to cache its result, so every single time you try and move the character at frame 140, let's say, every single time it has to recalculate this. It'll start from frame 0 and recalculate everything as you're trying to move the character. So very, very short amount of time, this can be completely unruly to use. So what you want to do is you want to turn it off while you're animating and then turn it back on for render times and seeing your tests. So let's actually adjust the amount down again with this. The other thing you can do is you can actually even adjust the amount of effect that each of the leg bones is going to have, and that's the tension on those items here. So we can actually decrease the amount that the legs have in effect, as well as set up dampening specific to each joint that's going to deal with it. Further down the list is external forces. We could actually add gravity here so that the gravity is always pulling on it and trying to pull it down. We're not going to need that at this point. We're going to leave that out. There's the start frame, and this is the start frame it starts to calculate from. The amount of iterations it uses to do the calculation. And then there's the effects, X, Y, and Z, XYZ. XYZ effect gives you sort of a multiplier on top, so let's just go to a spot where it's moving at this point, being pushed way up here. And it's in world coordinates, so you can see if I increase the amount of Z effect, it's increasing the amount of straight up and down effect. Let's just go to world so you can see what I mean. So that's the world Z up and down. X is across, and really you'd want your X and Y